So the Toronto Maple Leafs have won a playoff round. That is not a sentence I get to say very often. Like, they actually didn't choke. And by beating the Ottawa Senators in the first round in 6 games, the Leafs have earned the opportunity to play against the Florida Panthers. Yay! So today we are going to be previewing Leafs Panthers. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Zach Payne, and I am one of the hosts of Game Over Toronto, a post-game broadcast following every single Toronto Maple Leafs game. But obviously we're making an exception today to talk series preview. Before we get into it, make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to Game Over Toronto, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single live stream, again, after every single game. And let's get into it. Now, before we can get into this series, we first have to look back at how we got here. If any of you are longtime Leaf fans or you've been following the Leafs in any capacity for any amount of time, you know the story by now. It's the 9th year of this core and only the second time they've even made it to the second round. It has been playoff failure after playoff failure. The most games they've won in a single playoff run in this era has been 5. But obviously this year we got off to a bit of a better start. Now the Leafs couldn't make it easy on any of us with the losses in games 4 and 5, bringing the demons back and making everyone in the fan base feel that, yeah, quite simply, what's old is new again. Like, we've seen this story before, but lo and behold, they get the job done. They're through to the second round, and now we're going to see, is this team truly different? Meanwhile, on the other side, the Florida Panthers are on the opposite side of that spectrum. After a few playoff failures of their own, they opted to blow up their core and reshape it entirely, trading Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar for Matthew Tkachuk, and along with some other moves, they completely reshaped the identity of this team, and it worked. The Panthers have now been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. They won the thing last year, and now this season they look even more like a juggernaut than they did even last year. They're currently the best team in hockey, and they are the heavy favorites in round 2. Despite the fact that the Leafs won the division and have home ice advantage, no one is fooled after they completely dominated the Lightning in round 1. Everyone sees that the Panthers are back, and they just didn't care about the regular season at all. So, round 2, Leafs-Panthers, a rematch of the 2023 series that did not go well for the Leafs at all. If you'll recall, the Leafs were fresh off of winning their first series since 2004, and everyone was partying like they had just won the cup because, well, we thought that was it. We thought, hey, the curse is over. They got the monkey off their back, and now nothing is going to stop them on their road to Lord Stanley. And then Florida came to town. They were quickly squished like a bug against a ferocious Panthers team. They were gentlemen swept after going down 3-0. They managed to win a single game. Good for them. But yeah, it was bad. And despite the fact that 3 of those games were 1-goal games, 2 of which going to overtime, it wasn't a competitive series really at all. Now, the Leafs are much different than they were in 2023, arguably more prepared to play against this Florida team compared to the 2023 team that was built to play the Bruins. That being said, the Panthers are also much better as well. So let's start with what these Panthers bring to the table aside from everything. The defending Cup champs wound up limping through the regular season, especially towards the end, as injuries piled up and a suspension to Aaron Ekblad really took them out of the division race, so they wound up sliding to the 3 seed, and then when the playoffs start, everyone gets healthy, and the Panthers are the Panthers again. Now, the most notable injured player that has come back is obviously Matthew Tkachuk, who was injured at the Four Nations tournament, couldn't even play really in the championship game, and then he missed the rest of the regular season, and it was reported at the time that his season could be over entirely. But he's managed to suit up in the playoffs so far, and while he's clearly not at 100%, that is still a huge boost for the Panthers. Starting up front, the Panthers boast one of the deepest forward units in the league. Their top line of Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Reinhart boasts 2 Selke finalists this season, which is just unfair. Like, from a defensive standpoint, they have got to be the best 200-foot line in the entire league. Reinhart, while he is not the 57 goal scorer he was a year ago, he is still very, very good and obviously has taken a step defensively as well. That line is a nightmare for opposing superstars to face. The second line of Evan Rodriguez, Sam Bennett, and Matthew Tkachuk, meanwhile, is one of the most frustrating lines to play against from a physicality standpoint, and Leaf fans, the image of Matthew Knies getting slammed into the ice by Sam Bennett, being concussed and knocked out of the 2023 series, is a wound that is still not quite healed and is sure to be talked about as this series gets underway. The third line of Lusterinen, Lundell, and Marchand is just so underrated and annoying, and Brad Marchand, no Leaf fan, needs a reminder of what he's capable of in the playoffs. That is a goofy third line. And for anyone who doesn't know how good Lusterinen and Lundell are, you will. And to close it out, the fourth line of Greer, Sturm, and Boqvist is a very effective checking line for them as well. Meanwhile, the Leafs bring a forward group to the table that has more top-end talent, but it remains to be seen if that talent can thrive against a tight-checking opponent like the Panthers. Because Florida excels defensively, and they really do well at taking away time and space. Their gap control is honestly incredible. Like, just from an admiring your opponent perspective, full respect for the way the Panthers defend. It is really, really impressive, and it's going to be something the Leafs are going to have to game plan around, because this is not an opponent that they are going to be able to skate around or have a ton of time to make these crazy plays. They're going to have to work for every inch of ice. Starting up top with the Leafs' top line of Knies, Matthews, and Marner. On paper, this should be one of the best lines in the entire league. In practice, though, it's more so good than great, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Auston Matthews has been battling injuries all year, injuries that have really hampered his shot, which is his defining trait, so he's had to reinvent himself a little bit. This version of Matthews is a little bit more focused on playmaking and a lot more focused on the defensive aspects of the game. He's been fantastic in the faceoff dot. He's been very good defensively, very good on the penalty kill, and offensively, he still produced at a 95-point pace. And he was also over a point per game in round one. And then Matthew Knies has enjoyed a breakout season as a legitimate power forward, nearly 30 goals. He had 58 points. He was fantastic this season, and he has just emerged as a hulking tank on offense with soft hands, which makes him a very dangerous offensive force. And then there's Mitch Marner, who has earned a lot of criticism over the years for his playoff performances, but he is still one of the best defensive forwards in the league and is a wicked playmaker as well. So that top line, again, wicked players, but because Matthews hasn't quite been himself this year, it's not quite the dominant line that you would expect it to be. Now, the second line is where things get interesting. We know the duo of John Tavares and William Nylander is set. We know that. They're good to great even. William Nylander had 9 points in the first round. John Tavares was really good in his minutes as well. Those two are set. The question is who plays with them. Throughout the regular season, Bobby McMahon was the one who provided the best results, but Craig Berube has been hesitant to go to that trio for some reason. So in the first round, we saw kind of a rotating cast of characters. It started with Max Domi. That was horrifying and it didn't work. Then it was Pontus Holmberg. That was okay, but Holmberg just doesn't have the offensive talent to be in the top six. And then most recently, Max Pacioretty saw time there, but he played himself out of that spot and got demoted in Game 6 to the fourth line, where he wound up scoring the series-winning goal. So to start the series in Game 1 against the Panthers, Pacioretty will be back in the top six, but I don't expect that to last long. I do expect at some point for McMahon to end up back on that line. He provides the perfect combination of physicality on the forecheck to bang and crash with Tavares down low, while also being an effective trigger man for Nylander. Again, McMahon scored 20 goals this year, which is more goals than Pontus Holmberg had points. So I fully expect that trio to be reunited at some point so that they can hopefully be a really good second line. The checking line for the Leafs that gets used as the third line, the combination of former Panther Steven Lorentz with Scott Laughton and Calle Jarnkrok, was a revelation in the first round. Not an offensive line at all, but they soaked up defensive zone faceoffs, and they often turned those D-zone draws into offensive zone faceoffs for the next line that came over the board. So super effective line, and for a Leafs team that wants to defend well, this is a very important unit. And then the scoring bottom six line is kind of a hodgepodge of the second line rejects of Domi, Holmberg, and Pacioretty. I know Pacioretty's starting the series on the second line, so McMahon will start on this scoring line as well. And then if anyone plays poorly, Nick Robertson is ready and waiting to play as well. Now, overall, the Panthers unquestionably have the edge at forward just due to their sheer depth and how good they are defensively. The Leafs might have more high-end scoring talent, but again, with how good the Panthers are defensively, it's going to be tough to come by goals. So multiple lines for Toronto are going to have to elevate. Now, defensively, Florida has a very solid group of defenders. Their top pair of Forsling Jones will soak up a ton of minutes. The second pair of Mikola Ekblad, when Ekblad is back from suspension, is going to be very effective as well and soak up minutes. And then the third pair of Kulikov and Schmidt. Now, Nate Schmidt has been randomly amazing offensively in the first round, and he had 3 goals in the first 4 periods of the first round. That's going to be a good third pair, but they're not going to play a ton. The Leafs don't quite have the same top-end guys as the Panthers here, but they do have more depth on the back end. The McCabe-Tanev pairing will soak up the toughest minutes that the Panthers can throw at the Leafs. Riley Carlo is a great combination of offensive defensemen and defensive defensemen, and they've been super solid. And then the third pair of Benoit OEL has been shockingly good. They were amazing in the first round. And the Leafs rotated their all 3 pairings pretty consistently. They were all around 20 minutes every single night. They really leaned into having 3 effective pairs in the first round, and I imagine that will be the case as well in round 2. So Florida has a slight edge just because their top 4 guys will soak up more minutes, but the Leafs have the depth advantage here. Between the pipes, both Sergei Bobrovsky and Anthony Stolarz enjoyed very good regular seasons and good opening rounds of the playoffs. Now, granted, Bobrovsky will get the edge here just for the fact that he's proven that he can lead a Stanley Cup run and also the workload that comes with it, whereas Stolarz hasn't proven he can handle the workload as well. This is the first time in his career that he has played this often, so having the 3 days off before the series starts is huge for him, but it's very easy to see a world where Stolarz wins the goaltending battle, but you have to give the edge to Bob just because it's not as likely that Stolarz will do it, and again, he is the less proven commodity. Now, special teams is going to be where this series is won and lost for the Leafs. The Panthers' power play against the Leafs penalty kill is a good matchup, and the Leafs penalty kill that has struggled at times really started to improve as the first round went on, so hopefully they can keep that momentum going. But the real matchup here is the Panthers' penalty kill against the Leafs power play. The Leafs 5-man unit found a ton of success against the Senators' passive diamond formation, but how are they going to do against the Panthers' insane aggression? Remains to be seen, but it is worth noting that the Panthers fairly easily shut down the Lightning top power play unit, which it's very hard to do. I mean, Leaf fans know how much trouble Nikita Kucherov gave them in the playoffs over the years, so the fact that the Panthers shut them down so easily is cause for concern. And then lastly, we do have to acknowledge the coaching matchup. Now, Craig Berube, he brings 2 things to the table. The first is that he isn't as focused on X's and O's, but he does have the Leafs playing a more low-event style of hockey with an emphasis on defense. And the second thing is his calm demeanor has really helped the Leafs to stay poised in moments where past iterations of the team would have choked. And then on the other side, Paul Maurice brings 2 things to his team. One is an emphasis on gap control, taking away time and space from your opponent. And the other is Paul Maurice hockey. And for those who don't know what Paul Maurice hockey is, let's just say the officials can't call everything. It also helps that Maurice is a master of weaponizing the media to his advantage. Everyone remembers the infamous moment in 2023. Game 1, the Panthers win that game, but in that game, the penalties called were 4-2 in favor of the Leafs. But because the Panthers scored on a delayed call and one of the Leafs' power play opportunities was a double minor, Maurice infamously held up 5-1 to signal that the penalties were super unfair against his team, and the whistles went away the rest of the series, and the Panthers got away with bloody murder. This series is going to be a carnival from an officiating standpoint, and the Leafs have got to be able to match the physicality of the Panthers without getting drawn into the shenanigans after the whistle. With all that said, it's time for a prediction. A Florida team has been to the Cup Finals each of the last 5 years, with the Panthers being there the last 2, and it's easy to see why. They are loaded from top to bottom, a true juggernaut, possibly the best team in the entire sport, and they are the clear favorites for that reason. They're the heavy favorites even in this round against the Leafs, whereas Toronto is going to have to embrace the underdog mentality. The safe pick is Panthers in 6, but as a Leaf fan, I still have to have hope. So my head says Panthers in 6 or 7. My heart says Leafs in 7. I think it'll be a much more competitive series than 2023, and I do think it'll be a long series. But the path for the Leafs to win, there's fewer paths than there are for the Panthers. I'll say that. For the Leafs, you have to get off on the right foot. You went down 3-0 in 2023. You can't let that happen again. You have to win one of the two games at home. You have to split on the road and then just make it a best-of-3 dogfight and hope that you can win 2 out of 3 at the end. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to Game Over Toronto with notifications turned on. Again, we would love to see you after every single Leafs game. Come to the live chat and, talk hockey with us. Or if you can't make it to the broadcast, you can always watch those videos back on YouTube, or you can find Game Over Toronto wherever you get your podcasts as well, on every single podcasting platform. And also, drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on this series, how you feel about the Leafs matchup with the Panthers, and a series prediction. But that's going to be it for this video. We hope to see you tomorrow night on Game Over Toronto following Game 1. Again, that game is at 8 Eastern, and we will be live moments after the game ends right here on Game Over Toronto. So have a good night, everyone. And as always, go Leafs, go.